Friends and viewers, yesterday I had discussed with you about the trilogy of Maxim Gorky, a famous Russian writer. Now today I am going to discuss the second part of his trilogy, My Apprenticeship. So he had distributed his trilogy in three parts: my childhood, my apprenticeship, this one, and my universities, the final one. So my apprenticeship is about his life. Second part of his trilogy. Most of the event took place in Nizhny Novgorod, Gorky's birthplace. At the close of the book, Gorky states that he can be alive there no longer and move on to Kazan, where his expression, hardly less tolerable, are described in the final section of the trilogy. In my university, the whole trilogy covers roughly 20 years of the author's life, from the death of his father from cholera in 1871 to 1892, when he was wandering in the south of Russia, and his first published story, Makhar Chudra. My apprenticeship is almost twice the length of my childhood, although the period of time is shorter, and this is what we might expect from a growing boy, now much more receptive to external impression, more aware of people, their emotions, and of the many, often terrifying, even rushing past. The book first appeared in the serial form in the Russian world, is highly Gorky, a typical Gorky of a squalor, misery, and the violence that were daily feature of the life around him. He nonetheless showed a remarkable resilience and strength of character. Indeed, a vein of optimism runs through the whole trilogy. The hope is continuously voiced that one day people will stop behaving like wild animals, sadistic bullies, and drinking themselves silly, fighting, tormenting, and each other. Gorky was much a seeker after truth, trying to find a new and better life, but he was far from being any kind of dreamer. On the contrary, in my apprenticeship, he shows how he was able to withstand harsh and bitter reality. He often reacted quite violently to injustice and cruelty. A good example of this is provided by the scene of a steamboat Dobry, when at one moment the passenger cruelly bait a pathetic little soldier who had just joined the crew, and then work themselves into a wild panic when there is an explosion in the boiler room. So, my apprenticeship, Gorky tries to pathetic soldier on board the steamboat. It is this same feeling of impotent outrage that he led him to start a fight with a loathsome specimen who deliberately smashes a live cat set right before his eyes to provoke him out of sheer perversity. And in my apprenticeship, Gorky tells us how this desire to do something about his life, to square up to it, and to attack it at the close of the book. He states in a violent outburst of splendor that he wishes to give the earth a good kick, went hand in hand with the desire to escape from it. In my apprenticeship, we see both these men, the pugnacious Gorky, the escapist. Indeed, the close of each of the section of trilogy's departure, a move onward to a new world with the wild abomination of the old left behind. In the second part of his trilogy, Gorky described the three period of his life with Sergeyev's, the grandmother's sister family, his work in an icon painting shop, and his two journey on the board Volga steamboats as a dishwasher. By far the most insufferable is the suffocating life with a self-satisfied Philistine Koplikin Sergeyev. As he tells us, life is even more boring and cruel than ever before, was strictly controlled by daily routine. They had come immutable. It did not think that there could be any possibility of a better life, different from that which I condemned to watch unfolding before me every day. An escape from a stifling, monotonous existence was provided by reading, which opened up a new and controlling world to the growing boy. Although even this had to be done furtively. Gorky touchingly described how he used to hide in the bathhouse with a crippled girl like Dumila, or scraped wax from a candle to make his own candle to read with a single. Later in the My Apprenticeship, Gorky tells us a great deal about how he devoured book, how he reduced the strong illiterate man among whom he worked to tear by reading from Lermontov, Gogol, and Pushkin. In the spring of 1880, Gorky decided he simply could not bear life any longer with Sergeyev, people who had no culture whatsoever, who subscribed to cheap magazine, who considered themselves the finest in the town. He ran away down to the Weirs by the Olga, got a job in the steamboat Dobry, owned by same company he had. So, in the same memoir, he described his feeling about the people, about the woman, how he idolized Queen Margot, heroine from one of the French novels he had been able to read. That woman made a deep impression on me, he tells us. One that I had not experienced. It was though a bright dawn had come, and from several days I lived in the state of elation, like Smurry on the steamboat. Queen Margot fed Gorky with the books, in this case the work of Balzac, Concord, and Russian poet. But even his vision of radiant, incorruptible beauty was destroyed when Gorky one day found his queen lying in bed with her lover, and his illusion of purity were rudely shattered. In My Apprenticeship, Gorky described characters who are truly memorable. Once again, he gives a loving portrait of his almost saintly grandmother, whom he accompanies to the forest to gather mushrooms, of the imperturbable Smurry and the steamboat, of Natalia Kozilskaya, the simple washerwoman, of Kapladin, the Gargunter drunkard. So these are the people who put a great impression on his mind. So the picture painted in unrelieved gloom. So a Soviet writer, Podrosky, so accurately remarked about for him, Gorky is Russia, and just as Russia without Volga is unimaginable, so Russia without Maxim Gorky is equally unthinkable. In My Apprenticeship, Gorky gives a remarkable panorama of Russian life in all its suffering and gaiety, barbarity, and deeply affecting stoicism. Each character from this vast galleries described so geographically with such convincing detail that it becomes alive, and reader literally feels the physical penance of those icon painter, cooks, prostitute of those man and woman broken by life. Tolstoy is correct as he says about him, having said of Gorky, the man seems to be all eyes. The wonderful thing is that he saw and noted down things other people were incapable of seeing, or if they saw, were powerless to record. It is this makes Gorky trilogy one of the truly great autobiographies, a living, memorable record of boy's growth into a young man. So, ladies and gentlemen, My Apprenticeship, one of the loveliest, one of the most interesting trilogy I had read in my life. I prefer that you should also go through these pages. You will really find it very entertaining and enjoyable, full of experiences of a boy who faced such a hardship in his life. Thank you very much.